The floor is yours, Hillary.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hillary Loughran, and I'm the co-chair for Women in Timmins chapter. With me today, I have our special guest speaker, Chief Jennifer Constant of Mattagami First Nation. I would first like to begin by acknowledging that we find ourselves on the traditional lands of the Mattagami First Nation in the Treaty 9 territory. We will learn together today how partnership in our area can lead to reconciliation. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, we'd like to ask that everyone turn on your camera for a quick picture of our online group. Get those smiles ready.
Everybody's brush my hair. A picture? No one said a picture.
Yeah. Well, last call. Anybody else wanting to turn on their camera before I do my screen grab? 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, all set.
Thank you, everyone. A couple of housekeeping notes. Please ensure your mic is on mute. There will be a question and answer period after the presentation. You can also submit your questions in the chat box. I would like to thank our event partner, Melanie Verreau, president of Trimeda Consulting, on supporting today's lunch and learn. I will now pass the mic to Mel.
Thank you so much, Hillary. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. As Hillary mentioned, my name is Melanie Verreau. I'm the president of Trimeda Consulting. So since 2012, Trimeda Consulting has worked with organizations and professionals to not only assist them in finding, but also igniting their true north. Through our intentional leadership approach, we co-curate a plan with leaders to optimize their impact in their organizations, that is, turning challenges into opportunities for growth and success. Key areas and examples include embracing diversity, conquering crisis, implementing wellness strategies, managing change, and building high-performance teams. Providing services such as strategic advice and planning, corporate training, as well as one-to-one coaching, Trimeda Consulting supports today's leaders to maximize their performance in their current role while fueling their growth and potential. But enough about me and what I do. More importantly, I'd like to turn it over and introduce our guest speaker. Jennifer Constant is a member of Mattagami First Nation. She's an active representative of First Nation issues with a focus on promotion, advancement, and advocacy of First Nation objectives and initiatives. Jennifer has been involved with many boards and committees. Notably, she represented the Mattagami First Nation Trust as the chairperson, as well as being the president for the Mattagami Aki GP. Jennifer is an elected leader for her community of Mattagami First Nation. She started her political career back in 2003 and was elected for 9 consecutive terms as a councillor. Most recently, she was elected as the chief and follows a long line of chiefs in her family lineage. For more than 20 years now, Jennifer has been involved in the protection of traditional territorial rights and stewardship of natural resources within Mattagami First Nations traditional territories. She also negotiates for her community in matters such as impact benefit agreements, funding agreements, and business relations. Jennifer is the recipient of the 2012 Timmins Young Professionals Award and was recently recognized at the Women in Mining Sudbury Awards Gala as the 2024 Indigenous Trailblazer in honor of her years of service and for advocating for her First Nation in its relationship with the mining industry. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest speaker, Chief Jennifer Constant.
Yeah. Thank you. Mel just said my entire speech. I'm just joking. Well, thank you to the Chamber for inviting me today. I appreciate the time to come and speak, and especially for the Women in Mining Timmins. I'm really excited that that's a group that's in existence in Timmins and is starting to take action to host events. It's important, I think, in the North, especially for women, to have a space to have their voices heard, because a lot of times there isn't a lot of opportunity for that. So I thank you for that. I didn't really plan anything. I figured I would just speak about my own experience. So as Mel had indicated, I've been on a lot of boards and committees in and around Timmins, and I believe that's how I met Keitha quite some time ago. I won't date when we
Don't
met.
date either of us.
But quite some time ago. When I was younger, my mother was really big on me joining boards and being involved. And specifically because I come from a leadership family. And because I'm a woman, that is actually my rightful role and what was expected of me. As much as I didn't want to do some of it, I kind of had to because Joyce told me I had to. So I did. And I'm very fortunate that she was really, she pushed me in that aspect because it gave me a lot of experience in a lot of committees and board functions at a very young age. And then it just naturally kind of transitioned and I guess progressed, if you want to say, to a political role within my community, which I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to have 9 consecutive terms. I believe in my First Nation is the longest running leader in Mattagami. And you know, I can talk about myself all I want with that perspective, but really it's about having the confidence of my members and ensuring, because it really, you're being measured on every election. So being honest with them about how I'm going to represent our community. And that's brought me into a lot of different opportunities. So just inherently, Mattagami's territory is situated Timmins is situated within Mattagami's territory, which has and always has had, you know, a long history of extractive activities as the main industry for the area. So just by virtue of that, you know, recognizing that, okay, so at the time when I started leadership, the climate amongst non-Indigenous people, or maybe just the knowledge, was not what it is today, where people are recognizing now that you are, you know, building communities and towns and industries and lives and homes and you know, families within our territory based on the industry that is so rich and fruitful. For a very long portion of time, though, we were excluded from that, and very purposely. It was by systemic design. I don't know why there was an attitude that, you know, in order for success to occur, it was an us versus or either or kind of situation. And unfortunately, that's the history of that has created some issues amongst some of our members who were the hardest hit, where there's a lot of social issues. Those are the type of things that you see very visibly in the community, in a lot of urban spaces too. So with that aside, we've now put ourselves in a position of really advocating for inclusion and meaningful inclusion, you know, not just the like any kind of token of sentiment, but real, you know, we've positioned ourselves as the community as being a key stakeholder as well in the community. So we want to be sitting at the tables where there are opportunities, especially if they're coming from our territory, and to sit and form partnerships. And I think that within a very short period of time, we've proved that capacity. Not just in terms of leadership of our community, but also from an economic development perspective. And that's contributing to a lot of our capacity to be able to meet some of the needs of our members from the more socioeconomic kind of lens. For the most part, I think people would categorize me as someone who will sit and listen. And, you know, I'm always looking at opportunities and solution kind of based focused with anything that comes about, no matter what type of synergies. I do recognize that, you know, you never know what the opportunities are when you work with people. But very specifically, I'll dive into the Wobbin model and how that came to be. and how that's the basis for how we've been able to achieve a great deal of success in, as I said, a very relatively short time period. And then also some of the things that I truly enjoyed, especially and specifically working with the I Am Gold team, because there were certain things that I was very adamant on pushing forward and, you know, in theory, but now they're being put into practice. And I think it's such a great time because for so long, certain things were not included. So back, I can't even remember the year, the duty to consult was triggered due to a court case from a First Nation in the Sudbury area with one of the industries. The mining company had, you know, pretty forcefully used a very strong financial arm to try and, you know, get certain things moving. And that First Nation took the company to court. As a result of that, the work that we had been doing in the Timmins area to make inroads with negotiations and whatnot, it just kind of opened up a floodgate, which we were not prepared for. So within a very short period, we kind of had to have our own conversations because Mattagami and another community were being, how can I put it? A proponent was a very early exploration proponent, was trying to cause that divide and conquer and was trying to cause fighting amongst our nations. And I was a relatively young counselor at the time. Still like to think I'm young, but and kind of, you know, I think I kind of spoke out of turn, but I was being a woman in my community. That was my role. You know, I kind of had a very frank conversation with our chief at the time and said, what the hell are you doing? Like, you were not going to start fighting with our own brother and sister First Nations. We've been excluded from opportunity for the last hundreds of years, like the last 100 years. We need to figure out some kind of way to work together because now opportunity is at our doorstep. So with that, Sean Batiste, who is now a deputy minister with the government, his role just changed recently, so I don't know his actual role. But at the time, he was the executive director at the Waban Tribal Council office. And I approached him and said, you know, there's a need for us to really start working together collaboratively as nations, because what I see happening now is, you know, there's you know, and I get it, it's a negotiation tactic, or it's a tactic of, you know, you divide people and try to get the best benefit for yourself. And that's business, it's fine. But we came about, and from a basis of respect and knowing that we had been excluded for so long for the opportunities within our territory, we decided that, well, okay, we need to decide where our territories begin and end and how they overlap. And we need to agree amongst ourselves how we're going to push forward when it comes to any opportunities in our area. So we took on a very long task of bringing in a lot of our knowledge keepers, our elders. And, you know, we each had to make certain concessions about certain things. And we came up with a model, and we said, okay, this is what we've agreed to. And it's got, there's certain methodology that applies to it. So, and in a modern context, I see a lot of other nations trying to utilize that, but it's not being used in the manner that it was designed. So it was a pre-contact design, and it's proven to be really successful. So we as well, the chiefs at the time mandated that and gave it off to Sean to say, you go to this, you start talking to government, you start talking to industry. This is your, you know, what you're working on and what you're going to work towards. And it's opened up a lot of doors to dialogue, as with anybody, right? Being prepared and being organized is a skill, and it's one of the tools that you have to moving forward, but it also has proven to help industry with navigating stuff. We don't hide anything. We say, here's our documents, here's our agreements. And we started going around to anybody who had exploration companies in our territory and saying, hey, this is who we are, come and talk to us. At the time, a lot of people were like, get out of here, I don't need to talk to you. But you know, when you're working with industry and money is a motivator, people are going to change their attitudes if they realize that, you know, the way things are have changed and there's new ways of going about it. So with that, we've been able to, I can't give you the exact number, but we've been able to secure quite a few impact benefit agreements, just specifically in Mattagami, but also within the tribal council territory. I'm taking the liberty of speaking on behalf of the tribal council, even though I didn't tell them I was going to do that. But, you know, really, it's a testament to them taking our kind of directives and moving forward with that. And really, they've been the backbone of achieving a lot of that success for us. Because of the work that Wobbin did and us, the amount of work within the Timmins area, the amount of exploration and even development in the Timmins area, it gave us the opportunity to have discussions with the government about the need to be supporting First Nation communities because we didn't have the capacity to be able to do that. So through that, the government created a fund called the New Relationship Funding, which goes to support all First Nations now across Canada if they need that. So, you know, our work in Timmins, just to address an issue, has actually had, you know, widespread benefit to a lot of First Nations, which lends itself also to the benefits to the industry as well, because it's allowing First Nations to become more organized and, you know, building upon the model that we've developed to help implement a more successful path to negotiations. And hopefully to you know, to sign, you know, impact benefit agreements or whatever they are in you know, each respective territory, so that people can realize the opportunities. I know I've been criticized by people who just don't like me for whatever reason. When you're in politics, you just have to accept the fact that, you know, people are going to not like you for whatever reason. And, you know, when coming up onto the Indigenous Trailblazer Award, I had, you know, some people very critical of, you know, I'm letting mining into our territory and all this stuff. But, you know, even 20 years ago when I became a counselor, it's not like I just opened the door and said, come on in, everybody who wants to do mining. Like, it's been happening in my territory for, you know, long before I was even a thought. So the thing is as First Nations who are in the middle of these types of industries, we need to be able to equip ourselves so that we can say, I want to sit at your table and I want to be able to talk about why it's beneficial to you to sit there. And that, you know, we're not trying to come and, you know, take the bag and run away with it. We realize that, and we respect that in order for industry to operate, they, you know, they need a certain level of business and profit to be able to do that and to be profitable for the long term. And with that, we know that we can sit at a table and talk about what those mutually beneficial arrangements can be for the First Nation. So yeah, so that's a bit about the Wobbin model. More specifically, I mean, First Nations, obviously, and from my own community, I won't speak for all First Nations because that's not, I didn't get elected by everybody. But First Nations in general, like my First Nation, we recognize that there's a different lens that we view mining in. So environmentally, we have to be on par because we are stewards to the land. We do need to make sure that things are passing a threshold, that our community members are engaged and that their concerns are being brought forward. So we have that occurring in our community on a regular basis when we are working with opponents. So there's a different lens that gets applied to that. And then I think just ensuring that certain aspects are inclusive as well for First Nations people. You know, we come from a different kind of worldview, so making sure that that is part of it. One of the main things that I personally like to highlight with specifically with I Am Gold is the fact that we worked on a socioeconomic monitoring and management plan. So knowing that with any industry, it doesn't matter if it's mining or whatnot, anytime you have an influx of people coming into an area, you run the risk of there being, well, I don't want to say risk. There are a lot of positive benefits that come from it, but you also run the risk of there being some of the negative sides to it. And we recognize that as a First Nation, we have come from a very traumatic kind of experience systemically. So we wanted to make sure that when this opportunity comes, that we're able to maximize the benefit of it while also mitigating any potential risk that happens with it. So what we did was we co-created the socioeconomic management and monitoring plan. So with that, we were able to go in and do assessments of all the different levels leading up to the project development and establish kind of a base for all of the different things. So, you know, the health levels in the community, you know, are there any issues that are occurring? So there might be a positive side to that. So if there's, I don't know, I'll just give you an example, the rates of diabetes or whatever it is, that we are going to be measuring, okay, so what are the impacts? Is there an increase? Is there a decrease? And how do we help with mitigating that? I don't know what those solutions are, but those are the things that we at least have a dialogue about. The other aspect is the crime rate, you know, what is the crime rate in Mattagami or amongst even our members in general? Where is that? And, you know, where is it going? You know, so we've developed the theory. Now we're putting it into practice and being able to kind of have an assessment because mining companies have a responsibility to the towns that they create industry in. And I don't think it's solely the responsibility of the proponents, but you know, certainly if they're involved in that aspect of it or trying to mitigate it at the onset, then it's more successful for them to be able to run a long-term operation. So we were able to present that at PDAC, I think back in 2020, just before the pandemic, before everything happened. So we were able to present at that point. I'm hoping that in the next year or so, we'll be able to present as well on that. Just as a follow-up, because again, we developed it in theory and we had all of these ideals that were attached to it. And, you know, we're going to see how that plays out and, you know, where things are at. And, you know, if the proponent has been able to mitigate and assist the community in mitigating if there are any negatives, but also to measure the successes as well. I don't want to view it from just strictly a negative perspective. One of the other things that I did within my community is engage Indigenous women, making sure that their needs were heard. So talking to proponents and saying we need to develop a specific kind of meeting just to sit and discuss because women have a very different kind of you know, need and experience with working and whatnot. So we haven't quite met all of the identified obstacles or challenges, but we are trying to actively work towards them, like daycare and training that fits the needs of women, and just trying to be more supportive in that respect. And then also it's I think an opportunity for the proponent, and this one is just specifically with I'm Gold, is that, you know, we were able to host cultural activities that were very significant to our community because a lake had to be moved. So we did conduct our traditional ceremonies at site. And I know that it was something that the women in the community felt they had done their part to be able to do what was required. But I know that even for the company, they really cherished being involved because we did involve them in that aspect. I don't know if there's any questions. I don't know if I'm on target. I kind of, I'm just sharing.
Open the floor to questions.
Sure, if we're Chief Constance ready for questions, we can go.
Well, I'll just say one more thing before we get to that. So I talked a bit from a historical perspective. So I don't know if people know this. I think most people do. So my great-grandfather, Andrew Luke, was a signatory to Treaty Number 9. So at Fort Mattagami, which is just right in front of our First Nation, my great-grandfather signed that treaty, and the Treaty Number 9 is a sharing treaty. After signing it, a lot of things occurred that were not very favorable, I'll say it very nicely, to our people. And after that, he protested his treaty annuity, which at the time was a significant amount of money. I think he protested it for 13 years afterwards because he felt that he had failed his people by signing that. What was written was very different than what was told to them. And, you know, unfortunately, that legacy has spilled over and lasted for far too long while prosperity was occurring in our territory. And me being a leader now, even though I was a counselor for a long time, being the chief now, and leading up to that, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that not only are we securing a future for our generations that are coming up, and that there are opportunities, and we are building wealth for our nation, but we're also honoring our ancestors and what their intentions were when they signed that treaty. So, you know, I know a lot of people might be critical or some people, I should say, I shouldn't say a lot of people, a few people may be critical of the approaches that our community has taken, but what alternative do we have really? And, you know, what opportunities do we have? And I think that from that context, that's what our First Nation members, for the most part, are looking at. And we want to be successful. We rightfully should be successful. And we're trying to position ourselves to be on that path and to expand upon it. So that's one of the main things that I wanted to convey today.
Well, thank you, Chief Constance, for that insightful presentation. We're going to now open the floor to any questions and discussion.
Sure.
Mel, did you want to unmute and ask your question? I could read it for you, but.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Chief Jennifer, thank you so much for that. That was awesome. And hearing your experience, best practices, lessons learned, and just, you know, navigating and, you know, that pathway forward for the community and your future generations, for the 7 generations and so on to come. I just kind of want to put this out there and kind of hear from you in terms of, you know, your recommendations or best practices when it comes to industry applying, you know, the true spirit and meaning of FPIC, so free, prior, informed consent. You know, what has been your experience with that? And, you know, for our industry leads and folks on the screen here, what are some of those things to bring back to their own organizations as they move forward with projects with First Nations communities, particularly yours?
So I don't think that, how can I frame this? I think that we've done development, and I think if you approach any First Nation, for the most part, if not them directly, then their tribal councils, and ask them what is the best approaches, most people have a process of how they expect to be engaged. And I think that if there are any industry, it's to your benefit to do some of that work to just approach and have those conversations with people who actually have that experience. I would guess that people who are more novice in the area of dealing with industry, it might be a bit more alarming to them because they haven't had that experience. But certainly I know that there are, we were just having a conversation not too long ago about electrical development and the process to how to do that. So we're looking at actually developing an actual like template or a model, an actual handbook on how to be able to approach that. I know right now that the First Nation Major Projects Coalition has a similar model, and they've developed that through working with First Nations across Canada. So that's also another useful tool. But I think that whenever industry is going to be, or any proponent is going to be looking at developing, figure out whose territory you are in. You're not just opening a business. You should be looking at forging a relationship. I always say that, and we joke with Iron Gold that, we're married now, and you have to keep that relationship going. So, it is truly something that you have to work towards, and that you have to be able to have the right people representing you and making sure that that you're conveying what you need to get conveyed across, but also that you have people who understand the process of negotiation and how to get to, like I said, the mutually beneficial agreements. So I think that, yeah, I don't think I need to add any more to that. I think I've said, yeah. So hopefully I've answered your question, Mel.
Marissa, did you want to unmute and ask your question as well?
Sure. What is your long-term vision for the relationship between Mattagami First Nation and the mining industry?
I think just very basically is just to recognize that we expect to be at the table to have a conversation about anything. I know right now, we have agreements. I believe moving forward, it would be more depending on the position that the First Nation is in, more equity stake. But, we do recognize that we have to position ourselves as well to be able to handle that. And I think that's probably the same for any First Nation across Canada.
And my
I don't know
second,
if yeah.
yeah, that answers my question. Yeah. And the second one was just, are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about or that you'd like to share?
With industry or like just for the community in general?
Within the industry, yeah.
I think, well, I mean, it's not about mining, but we're working on the transmission line, which I guess is about mining. So we're really happy that the Chamber, as well as the City of Timmins, recognize that supporting our application for the Wawa to Porcupine transmission line. It goes through, majority of Waban's territory, and, we did a lot of legwork to make sure that we advocated for our communities to be involved in that aspect. So we're looking forward to that and the opportunity that brings, and how we'll be engaging, all of our various partnerships to help bring that project to fruition. Ultimately, what it is we're able to employ our people. We're able to create meaningful jobs for them, and then, the equity stake in it, we're ensuring there's some long-term benefit for our community, so that we can do the growth and all the different things that we've envisioned for our people.
I have a question.
Sure. Oh, no.
No, I know earlier you alluded to the fact that, you have followed some wonderful leaders in your community, but you did serve 9 terms as a counselor. You you learned, you were involved. So I'm just wondering, you know, when you thought of becoming the chief, what was it because you had done the 9 terms? Like, what were the things you were afraid of, and what were the things that inspired you to do it?
So there was always an expectation that I would do that. I know in my family. So my mom was a chief, my grandfather, my uncle, my great grandfather. So there was that expectation there. But I love my community, and I know that I can speak up for my members. I may not, you know, maybe some people may not think that I'm saying the right message or I'm not speaking on behalf of them, but I know for the most part, I'm speaking on behalf of my members. I'm also speaking on behalf of myself as a member. And I know those opportunities that exist. You know, I was born in Timmins. I was raised here. I went to high school here. And, you know, I've always been a very optimistic person, but part of me always, there's that, there's an education that happens in the community as well, where elders are telling you all of this stuff is happening in our territory, and we've been reduced to not being able to, not only advocate, but also protect what's important to us. So, and it's not just me, there's a lot of our members that have that knowledge that's always been put into us. So not begrudgingly, but knowingly, growing up in my own territory and feeling like a stranger in my own territory, I actually have that opportunity now as a chief to be able to do and say, you know, diplomatically, the things that have been messaged to us growing up. I joke about that I've done the longest apprenticeship ever to becoming a chief, and it wasn't without its very, you know, big bumps and scrapes in trying to get in as chief. But I think that, you know, our members are becoming, you know, certainly more educated and more sophisticated and want that in their leadership as well, and they want it to be conveyed. So my promise to my members was that I will represent you, and I will do it in a capacity where I am engaging and I am going to be speaking about the things that are important to us as Mattagami members. And I'm going to have fun with it, because what an opportunity, right? To be able to, you know, I did go to school and, you know, grunted through that stuff. And I do still plan on hopefully finishing my master's degree if I can. But, you know, what an opportunity for me to be able to do this. And it does come with a lot of responsibility. But yeah, did I answer your question? I don't know that I did. Yeah, you know, it's really a great time to be able to, for our community to be able to say, you know, we have that partnership with the city of Timmins, with the chamber certainly, and that, you know, we're actually helping industry navigate, because it's new to all of us, right? It's new to all of us, and I know that not everyone's able to articulate that. For my members, I certainly can help with navigating that process. And it's not just this with mining, it's also, you know, I don't want people to commiserate with me in the suffering aspect. While people can have empathy, I can also help people navigate out of that and help us with that. And that's why I've done certain things, certain synergies and certain collaborations to help people. You know, I know when people want to be an active ally or whatnot, but just to help people kind of facilitate or navigate that while we facilitate it, you know.
And when we spoke earlier and you like instantly lit up talking about your new rec facility, like,
Yeah.
you know, doing great things in your community. So
Yeah, so that's one example, as Keith had just mentioned, you know, the opportunities that are coming from us having meaningful seats at tables and agreements means that we're able to you know, leverage some of that to be able to create opportunities in our community. I also said how sore I am from working out, but you know, Mattagami has this beautiful new facility in our community, and you know, that's contributing to the health of our younger generations. We recognize that not everyone lives in the community, but we're trying to have the most impactful projects for our communities, for our community, and then also facilitate different type of gatherings. So because not all of our members live in Mattagami, so we're trying to facilitate things, and we're able to do that now. Bring people back for like a reunion type of thing on an annual basis. So it's really great.
And when you look in the faces of the little girls in your community, what do you want them to know about being chief?
That they can do stuff. I'm really having conversations with a lot of our youth, but even with our young girls about the opportunities being limitless. I'm really plugging into them that I would love to see an Olympic athlete that has a Mattagami membership, and talking to them about my niece and her friends, talking to them about like, Timmins has an Olympic athlete that won in skiing, like a winter sport. So just trying to inspire them to recognize that opportunities are there, and it's not just academically. It could be, physical triumph or whatever you want to call it, that there's opportunity, because really, in my lifetime, certainly in my mother's, my grandfather's, and my great-grandfather's, a lot of their full potential was stifled by various designs that were imposed upon them. And we're trying to kind of lift those layers up so that people can actually live their lives in a very meaningful way. And I honestly think that you're going to see some really great things come out of in the next few years, because we're positioned now to be able to help that, transpire, flourish, whatever you want to call it. And I think just being hopeful, even if it, so one of the things, I might get down sometimes, but as a leader, I recognize, like, again, I don't want anybody to commiserate with me while things are horrible. Like, yeah, that's great. But everyone goes through things, but I want to talk about opportunities. I want to talk about potential, and hopefully that kind of translates and spills over to other people as well, and certainly my members. Yeah. Was there any other questions?
I might just add one more. So you described what partnerships can look like with mining industry. Can you maybe speak to what partnerships or how you'd like to see involvement in any other type of supply and service business that may be either expanding, setting up in your traditional territory, and what that might look like, or what you'd like that to look like?
Certainly. So I have anybody who wants to speak to me about these things, I'm open to that, firstly. Secondly, making sure that we are in that position to be able to do that. And if not, then preparing ourselves to be able to do that. I can give you some examples. There's going to be development to the highway coming up. We've had those conversations and went forward. We also know that there are different people in the territory who do that type of work. So we're approaching and trying to create those synergies where there are opportunities. And we're honest too that if there's certain areas that we don't feel that it's where we're going to be going, we won't push for any of that in certain areas. And we've had those types of conversations as well. Certain people have approached us about certain opportunities, and we've said, no, we're not going in that direction. So yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm always worried I'm not going to go like answering the questions.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't see any other questions in the chat, Hillary.
So we're now at the end of our session. I wanted to take a moment to thank Chief Constant for sharing her time with us this afternoon. Also to thank Melanie of TriMeta Consulting for supporting this session, and both to Lakeshore Gold and Agnico Eagle for supporting our chapter. Our appreciation to those who attended our childcare roundtable. The summary report will be out in February. Our next roundtable will be held in March, and topics and details will follow. To stay updated on future events, networking opportunities, and industry news, please consider becoming a member of Women in Mining Timmins if you aren't already. You can visit our website at www.wimtimmins.ca to learn more and apply. We also encourage you to follow us on social media to stay connected. Before we go, I want to say good luck to the WIMT Timmins team who will be participating in the CIM Porcupine Curling Fun Spiel on February 8th. We do have one spot left open, so if anybody wants to join, please reach out to Carmen today if possible. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you for that. Hopefully I didn't get